The court summons was folded in the teenager's pocket as Denzel Washington talked about second chances and the power of choosing your path. Ellen was discussing the actor's latest role about redemption when she noticed the young man in the second row repeatedly touching his jacket while staring at Denzel with desperate hope. What happened next would prove that sometimes the most important performances aren't on movie screens, but in courtrooms where young men learn that their worst mistake doesn't have to define their whole story, and that real strength comes from walking away from the life that's destroying you. It was a powerful Monday afternoon at the Ellen DeGeneres show, and the studio resonated with inspirational energy. 400 audience members had gathered to see one of cinema's most respected voices discuss his craft and his commitment to uplifting others. Ellen, distinguished in a sharp charcoal blazer with subtle gold threading, was thoroughly enjoying her conversation with Denzel Washington, who commanded the guest chair with characteristic dignity, wearing an impeccably tailored navy suit that couldn't hide the authentic wisdom and moral authority that had made him more than just an actor, but a father figure to millions seeking guidance and redemption. "Denzel," Ellen said, leaning forward with genuine respect, "you've played so many characters who face moral crossroads, who have to choose between easy wrong and difficult right. What do you want to say to young people who feel trapped by the choices they've made?" Denzel's expression grew thoughtful, his famous intensity taking on that quality of someone who understood that words could change the trajectory of a life. "Ellen, I believe every young person deserves a second chance, no matter what they've done, no matter how far they think they've fallen. The enemy wants you to believe that your worst moment defines you forever. But that's a lie. Every day you wake up, you get to choose who you're going to be." The audience listened with the kind of reverent attention that Denzel's authenticity commanded. This wasn't typical celebrity promotion. This was moral guidance that felt like it could save lives. And the pressure young men face, especially in certain communities, to prove themselves through violence or illegal activities, Ellen continued carefully. "How do you talk to them about finding a different kind of strength?" "Real strength isn't about proving you're tough to people who don't matter," Denzel said with conviction. "Real strength is having the courage to disappoint the people pulling you down so you can become the man you're supposed to be. It's about understanding that your neighborhood might define where you come from, but it doesn't have to define where you're going." That's when Ellen noticed him. In the second row, slightly to the right, sat a young man who appeared to be around 17. He had a lean build, wore a oversized hoodie and jeans, and kept unconsciously touching his jacket pocket while staring at Denzel with an intensity that suggested he was hearing something that felt personally urgent. His name was Marcus Johnson, though Ellen didn't know it yet. What caught Ellen's attention was the way Marcus was hanging on every word Denzel said about second chances and choosing your path, tears building in his eyes as he repeatedly reached for something in his pocket. Marcus's body language showed the careful alertness of someone used to watching for danger, but his expression held the vulnerability of a young person desperately looking for a way out of something. Ellen's instincts, sharpened through 20 years of reading her audiences, told her this wasn't someone inspired by Denzel's message about redemption. This was someone who needed that redemption right now, immediately, before it was too late. "Denzel," Ellen said gently, "hold that thought about getting to choose who you're going to be every day. I think someone in our audience is facing exactly that choice right now." Denzel followed Ellen's gaze toward Marcus, his expression immediately shifting from entertainer to deeply concerned mentor as he recognized the signs of a young person at a crucial crossroads. Ellen stood up from her chair and took several steps toward the audience. "Young man in the second row, you look like you have something on your mind." Marcus looked up, startled and conflicted by the sudden attention of 400 people and multiple cameras. He pulled his hand away from his pocket and tried to sink deeper into his seat. "I'm good," Marcus said. his voice carrying the careful control of someone used to not attracting attention from authority figures. Just listening. Ellen walked down the steps that separated the stage from the audience, something she did only when every instinct told her someone was at a moment that could change everything. "What's your name?" Ellen asked, now standing directly in front of Marcus's row. "Marcus Johnson. I'm 17. Ellen knelt down in the aisle beside Marcus's row, her charcoal blazer spreading around her as she created a safe space in what must have felt like dangerous exposure. "Marcus, you keep reaching for something in your pocket. What's in there?" Marcus looked around the studio, then at Denzel, then back at Ellen with such conflicted pain that it made everyone in the studio understand they were witnessing someone wrestling with a life-defining decision. It's my court date," Marcus said finally. "I got arrested last month. Armed robbery. I'm supposed to appear next week, and everyone's telling me to run, that the system's rigged against kids like me anyway." The studio fell into that particular silence that happens when hundreds of people realize they're watching someone stand at the exact moment their life could go in two completely different directions. From the stage, Denzel Washington stood up immediately. Without being asked, without consulting producers, he walked down to join Ellen and Marcus. This celebrity interview had just become something infinitely more important. Denzel approached Marcus with the careful respect of someone who understood exactly what it meant to grow up, where wrong choices felt like the only choices available. "Marcus," Denzel said, his voice carrying the authority that had made him believable as everyone from Malcolm X to a corrupt cop to a righteous man of God. "Tell me about this armed robbery. What happened?" Marcus's composure cracked slightly. "My cousin said we needed money for my little sister's medicine. My mom works 2 jobs but still can't afford her asthma inhaler. He said it would be easy. Just scare some guy outside an ATM, get some quick cash." Ellen felt her heart racing as she realized they were hearing the exact kind of story that led young men to prison or worse. "But it wasn't easy," Ellen said gently. "The guy fought back. My cousin hit him with the gun. The man ended up in the hospital." Marcus's voice was getting smaller. "I didn't touch anybody, but I was there. I was part of it. And now everyone's saying I should run before my court date because the system's gonna railroad me anyway." Denzel knelt beside Ellen, creating an intimate circle, while Marcus continued to clutch the court summons like it contained his fate. "Marcus, who is everyone telling you to run?" "My cousin, my boys from the neighborhood, even some adults. They say showing up to court is just giving them a chance to lock me up for years. They say I should disappear, maybe go stay with family in another state." Denzel's expression had shifted into something Ellen had rarely seen from any celebrity, a fierce combination of moral authority and paternal protection. "Marcus, I want you to listen to me very carefully," Denzel said with quiet intensity. "Those people telling you to run, they're not trying to save you. They're trying to keep you trapped in the same cycle that's destroying your community. Running makes you a fugitive for life. Showing up gives you a chance to take responsibility and build something better." Marcus looked up at Denzel with something approaching hope for the first time in the conversation. "But what if they send me to prison? What if I lose years of my life? What if I can't help my family?" "Prison is one possibility," Denzel said honestly. "But running is a guarantee that you'll never have a legitimate life. Never be able to help your family openly. Never be able to look at yourself in the mirror with respect. Facing this might be hard, but running from it will destroy you slowly." Ellen stood up, her heart breaking for this young man who was being pulled between accountability and escape. "Marcus, what does your heart tell you is the right thing to do?" "My heart tells me to face it," Marcus admitted, "to take responsibility for what I did, to try to make it right. But I'm scared. I'm 17, and I'm scared of losing my whole life over one mistake." Denzel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out something unexpected: his personal business card. Marcus, I'm going to give you two things right now. First, this is my attorney's number. He specializes in juvenile cases, and he's going to represent you when you show up to court. But more importantly, I'm going to give you something else. Denzel stood up slowly. I'm going to give you my personal commitment that whatever happens in that courtroom, your story doesn't end there. If you choose to face this like a man, if you choose accountability over running, I will personally make sure you have opportunities to rebuild your life. Marcus stared at Denzel in disbelief. Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me. I know enough, Denzel said firmly. I know you're 17 and you made a mistake trying to help your family. I know you're sitting here wrestling with doing the right thing instead of the easy thing. I know you're exactly the kind of young man worth investing in. Ellen felt tears welling in her own eyes as she watched this exchange. Marcus, what would your little sister want you to do? She'd want her big brother to be someone she could be proud of, Marcus said, fresh tears streaming. She'd want me to be brave, to face my mistakes instead of running from them. Ellen began removing her charcoal blazer. Marcus, this blazer has been with me through some of my most important interviews. But today, it's witnessing something more important than any celebrity story. It's witnessing courage. She placed the blazer around Marcus's shoulders. You came here today carrying a court date like a burden. But maybe it's not a burden. Maybe it's an opportunity to show the world who you really are. But it was Denzel's next words that reached Marcus at his core. Marcus, I want you to know something. The man you become after you face this mistake, take responsibility for it and rebuild your life, that man is going to be stronger than the man who never made the mistake at all. Your worst moment doesn't define you. How you respond to your worst moment, that defines you. Denzel stood up and addressed the cameras directly. If there are young men watching this who are facing consequences for their actions, who are being told that running is easier than facing up, please know that your community needs you to be better, not absent. Your family needs you to be accountable, not invisible. Your future self needs you to be brave, not comfortable. The moment that brought the entire studio to sustained applause came when Ellen asked Marcus what he wanted to say to other young people facing similar choices. I want them to know that the people telling you to run aren't your friends, Marcus said, his voice growing stronger as he looked at Denzel's business card. I want them to know that facing your mistakes is scary, but running from them is scarier. And I want them to know that there are people who will help you rebuild if you're brave enough to try. Denzel's eyes filled with tears of pride. That's exactly right, Marcus. Courage isn't not being afraid. Courage is being afraid and doing the right thing anyway. 1 week later, Marcus Johnson appeared in court with Denzel's attorney and took full responsibility for his actions. He was sentenced to community service and mandatory counseling rather than prison time, partly due to his decision to face the charges rather than flee. Denzel kept his promise, setting up a scholarship fund for Marcus and connecting him with mentors and job training programs. 6 months later, Marcus appeared on The Ellen DeGeneres Show again, but this time he was accompanied by his little sister, whose medical bills were now covered by a foundation Denzel had connected them with. Marcus had become a peer counselor for at-risk youth, speaking in schools about the choice between accountability and avoidance. The segment sparked a national conversation about juvenile justice, the importance of mentorship, and the power of choosing accountability over escape. Marcus became an advocate for second chances and community responsibility, showing other young men that facing your mistakes is the first step toward transcending them. Ellen learned that day that her job wasn't to interview famous people about their latest projects. Her job was to create moments where moral crossroads could be illuminated, where young people could be shown the difference between easy wrong and difficult right, and where the choice to be better could be supported and celebrated. Denzel Washington learned that the most important performances happen not on movie screens, but in moments when his own voice of moral authority gives someone the courage to choose the harder path that leads to redemption rather than the easier path that leads to destruction. And Marcus Johnson learned that sometimes the scariest thing you can do, showing up to face the consequences of your worst decision, is also the thing that transforms you from someone who makes excuses into someone who makes amends, from someone who runs from problems into someone who solves them. Because the most powerful stories aren't always the ones with happy endings from the beginning. Sometimes they're the ones where young men learn that redemption is possible, that second chances must be earned, and that the courage to face your worst moment is what creates the strength to build your best life.